happy to see you guys, and welcome back if you have been here at last class, and welcome for the first time if this is your first time here. So, we are doing part 2 of our butterfly mosaic series. So, with part 1, if you guys remember, we should have already completely outlined the butterfly. But if you have not finished outlining your butterfly in your Sharpie marker or perhaps whatever you have that is permanent, then go ahead and do that now. And for me, I really just want to go over my rose lines again just to make them a little bit thicker, but that's about it. That's really all I'm gonna do. After we finish up the rest of this, well, just the outlining, we're gonna go ahead and use our watercolors. So watercolors, or if you happen to have something else like, I don't know, like watercolor markers or watercolor pencils, you're more than welcome to use those too. I will be using regular watercolor paints, so just so you guys know, but again, you guys are welcome to use your medium of choice. And for those of you guys who don't know this, I know I haven't brought this out in a long time, but if you happen to have the washable, like regular Crayola markers, like they look like this. If you happen to have these washable ones, they actually spread, if you put water on top of it, like with a paintbrush, it'll spread just like watercolor. So just a little tip in case you want to do something a little different. Yeah, any questions before we begin?
Yeah,
And
we
you
supposed
said
to do those lines already?
yeah. So we do want to go over our lines with our permanent marker or permanent pen of choice. So again, I use Sharpies just because they are permanent and I already know that they're permanent. So I usually just go straight for the Sharpies. If you're unsure of your own tool, like a different pen, for example, then what you're going to do is you'll take a separate sheet of paper. Say I have this, for example, and all you have to do is run a little bit of water on top of it just to see if it runs. Luckily for me, this is a regular ballpoint pen and it does not run, doesn't budge. So you're good. This is like a regular, like Bic, what is it, like a Bic ballpoint pen. So those are pretty nice too.
And we are going to wait on our antenna, right?
Let's go ahead and do the antenna now.
Okay.
I think that if you have your permanent marker of choice, we can go ahead and do that antenna. Are y'all ready to see that being drawn?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. See lots of nodding. Cool. So I want to point out this little guy right here. So I always like to start very simple. I'm literally just going to start right on top of the head and I'm going to draw it out and then we're going to make it a little bit thicker at the end there. So pretty straightforward. I'm starting right at the head here. And I know that I want it to go out over here. I'm always flipping my markers everywhere.
Hannah, can you make your screen big?
Sure. Is that a little bit better if I'm up close like that?
Can you share your screen? I think that's what I say.
Oh, whoops. I'm sorry about that. Spotlight. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, let me just make sure nobody else is in the waiting room. Okay, we're good. Yeah. All right. So with our little antenna, all we have to do is go out. You can go ahead and do both of them if you want. And then at the end here, I'm going to thicken it just at the end. Taper it down. And that's it. Any questions? Cool. All right, you guys got this. I'm excited to put color on it now. Go ahead and do it like this. All right, so as far as what to do now, kind of depends on how I guess what kind of colors you have. Now for here, for my little butterfly, I knew that I wanted to color in the outside of the wing. So all this huge black portion, I know that I wanted to color that in with a Sharpie marker. So I did do that. I did do that beforehand. And I did that because I really didn't think that I had very big of an area with which to color the Sharpie in. It was relatively small, so I really wasn't worried about it. For anybody else whose black area is a little bit bigger than mine, say for example, you're doing like one of those zebra butterflies where pretty much half of it is colored black. You do have the option of coloring it in with your watercolors or whatever you're coloring it in with. So keep that in mind as well. No matter what though, well, I take that back. If you happen to be coloring it in using your watercolors or anything water-based, then save your dark portions, including black, save it for last. When it comes to watercolors, we want to color these things in from light to dark. However, that doesn't include tiny little spaces like this right here. It can get a little bit complicated with watercolors, but for the most part, we do want to color in big areas first, and then little areas after that, smaller and smaller. But again, it kind of depends on what kind of colors you're using too. Generally though, as a rule of thumb, I do like to start light first. And again, not where there are smaller areas. So this area, these little droplets here, say for example, maybe I wanted to have them color them in yellow. That's a pretty light color. Yellow is pretty light. I would save that for later. Oh, I'm sorry. I would still save that for later because it's such a small area. This area here is pretty large. So I am going to start with the large area here and move around these little teardrop shapes. And I'll save them for last. I'll color them in last. I am going to start to color in here first, but then I'm going to jump around. Then I'm going to start to color on the outside. So the reason I like to do that is because I like to give some areas a little bit of a chance to dry. So for example, I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys, okay? So I will be repeating all of this, but my first step, because I have such a large area over here, I'm going to color all of this in first. Same thing with this part right over here. And then I'm going to pause and I'm going to go back here and start to color my background out here. And I'm doing that because I want this area to dry. I want it to dry before I go in and do anything else like this part, for example. And I'm doing that so I can allow the paint to set into place. I don't want it to move. I want my paint to absorb into the paper. So I'm just going to leave it alone and let it do its thing while I jump around and work on something else. So again, I know that's a lot of information, but I'll be talking through this as we go. Do I have any questions before I start to color? Okay. All right, y'all. So I'm going to use my pointy brush. I know I brought this one out, but I am actually going to use my pointy brush. I'm doing that because I have lots of areas that are thinner. So my pointy brush, it just has an easier time getting around these areas. So let me go ahead and bring that in. I didn't even think about what color I want to use yet. And again, I'm starting out with my largest area on my butterfly.
I was gonna ask you, and then
Yeah.
because I came a couple minutes late, you go, does anybody have any questions? And I was like, did you choose your colors yet? So you kind of answered that, but usually you
Yeah.
talk. So
Well,
Yeah.
I guess related to that, if you have a big area, but it's darker, do you still do the bigger area? I mean, which one do you do? Lighter or bigger?
Good. Yeah, good question. So if you have a bigger area, but it's still darker, I would still do the lighter area. But
Okay.
I think it really depends on the space around it. Do you mind showing us if you have any, like if
I
you're
have
okay with
nothing
it?
yet to I have exactly what you drew. I mean, I was just
Okay.
it was in theory, not in practice.
Yeah, yeah. I think it
Not
just depends
heckling, just
on,
curious.
yeah, I think it just depends on what you've got. So for
Okay.
example, say I had a zebra butterfly. So like I mentioned, a zebra butterfly, it's got really 50% of it is covered in black.
Mhm.
So that's a very large area. So I would still do my what is it, my lighter color first, because that black paint, it's so strong. It's such a very strong, powerful color. So I would do my yellow or whatever other color I have first, then jump around to my background and do my
Okay.
background. Yeah. That's a very good question, because who knows if somebody's watching this later and they may have that same question.
Yeah.
So I have my water, and I think I'll just do. You know what? March is MS Awareness Month. I'm gonna do some orange.
I was wondering, we didn't get instructions in NCAN to come in orange.
Oh yeah. Well, we have our next art class is going to be in, I think, 2 weeks now. So can totally wear orange. Maybe I'll do an orange-ish or a painting with orange for that class.
Or at least
Alright.
something with the theme,
Yeah, something, yeah. Okay, so for me, I have this large area. I would like to just paint it in. I'm going right on top of my Sharpie, and I'm just going for it. And again, this pointy brush is allowing me to maneuver well enough. Whereas if I had a flat brush, it'd be a little bit more difficult to move around. Not impossible, but a little more difficult. And if you'll notice, I like to point the pointy brush into the thin areas, point it and then move it outward like that. Now, let's say I wanted to maybe dull the color out a little bit. Maybe I don't want it to be quite as bright as this. So if I wanted that kind of effect, I would go in, quickly rinse my brush, because I do want this area to still be wet. Quickly rinse my brush and then take that water that's on the brush and then go right there at the edge and drag that paint around. I'm just dragging around what's already there. And I want to get it while it's still wet. That's one way to sort of make your paints a little bit more translucent in some spots. Now, what I do to one side, I want to do to the other side. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to take my orange. And for me, once again, it's going to be the brightest right at the edge there, or right on the inside there. Now, I'm doing my painting this way, but that does not mean that you have to do it this way. Okay, if you want to have the opposite effect, where it's a little bit lighter on the inside, then that's what you would do. You would start off with a more diluted version of your color. So more water, less pigment for paint. More water, less paint. I'll probably do that to the bottom, what is it, the bottom wing, just to show you what I mean. And again, I'm maneuvering around this stuff. While it's still wet, I'm gonna go into my water, rinse off the paint that I have on there, go right back to my painting with just the water. And I'm really gonna spread that paint outward. Take your time maneuvering around your, whatever you might have within your wing. Any questions? I feel like mine is a little bit lopsided. I feel like it's darker on this wing than it is on the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to lift up some of this paint with extra water. Take it away. Take it away by going back over it with a clean brush. Here's another thing. If you wanted to take away paint a little bit more quickly than what I'm doing, then you can very carefully take a napkin and start to lift it away. I'm using the corner to maneuver around it, around my smaller components. And I'm just very carefully lifting. That's just one thing you can do if you need to. There you have it. That's how you take away some paint. That technique can be a little bit tricky because sometimes you might accidentally take away a little bit too much paint, and then you have to go back over again with some more pigment and very slowly work it to the way you like it, but it is an option. Okay, so say I wanted to do the opposite effect on the bottom wings, these two guys right here. So say I want it to be darker on the outside. So I'll go ahead and start on the outside. So I have my darker pigment over here. Very slowly work around these little circles that I have. And then I've probably gone about halfway. Gonna rinse my brush now. Because it's such a tiny area, I don't want to have too much water. I tapped a little bit off of my brush because it was a little bit too much. And all I'm doing is dragging that pigment towards the middle so that it looks like it's more transparent. And again, repeat. Do it to the opposite end. Start off over here with my larger amount of pigment, slowly going around my little circles here. Then I can rinse my brush, grab a little water, but not too much. I want to tap it on my napkin a little bit. And then drag that little bit that you have to the center. Now, if you have any questions for your individual piece, let me know and I'd love to take a look at it. See if I can help you if you need it. There you have it. Now, I did mention that I want to give these areas some time to rest, some time to absorb the ink, so that it doesn't move around, at least not as much. So I'll go ahead and jump into the background now. Now the background, there's a few ways to handle this, but it might be easier if I just kind of explain this one first. So with this one, I was able to identify which areas which areas flow upward. So this area right here is all one piece. This area here seems like it's one piece, and so on. This one's kind of one piece. So what I did for the larger areas was I took my flat brush, not a big one. I just, I have this little 1/2-inch one here. So anything that's similar to this size, I think would be a good fit. And I started off by painting the thinner, more translucent colors. So it's very watered down. So really, it's the light version of my colors. So with this one, this is just watered down version of purple. You can see a little bit of watered down yellow back here, but really I had gone and I swiped my paint all across this area. Later on, after things were a little bit more dried, that's when I put down a little bit more red. So all of my darker colors, that's when I put those down. Really, I went one section or section by section and painted in the larger areas first with those lighter colors, those more translucent colors, and then later on, that's when I put the darker colors on top. It's a little bit different when you're dealing with blues and purples, simply because if you want them to stay purely those colors, you'll want to try to avoid them early on. So here's an example. I can see here, there's this full piece that runs down underneath my butterfly and underneath my flower here. Say maybe I want these thin pieces here, the ones that go right through it. Maybe I want those thin pieces to be green. Maybe I don't want them to be any other color but green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint everything outside of those two colors. So maybe I'll just paint it blue or something. But these are going to remain white. And because they are darker, I'm going to wait till later. I'll paint them much later. So bigger areas first, and then you do your thinner areas later. Unless they are going to be a very similar color to your base color, to the base color. So if that wasn't confusing, I'm going to go ahead and give you an example. I'll go ahead and just start painting it in. That way you can see what I'm talking about. So I will go ahead and use this brush right here. And I just want to give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. So maybe I will paint it. Let's see. I changed my mind about the green. I actually want these thin pieces to be like a blue, but the outside can be green.
Is that
So
allowed?
here's.
You can change your mind. Is that allowed?
Oh yeah, totally allowed. So I'm gonna water it down because I want it to be a thin color. I want it to be a light color. Water that down, and I'll start painting on the most obvious spot. This area gives me the most space. So I'll start painting in this area just because it is the easiest to access. And if I wanted to, I could very well paint this the same color, but I do want it to be very different from my main color. So I am going to avoid it for now. And again, this is my base color. My base color, I'm going to color in both these sections here. And then can't forget, it skips down here as well. So I'm going to put this color down here. So that's my base color for this one section. So ideally, I would also paint these two as well, so the neighboring colors. So my neighboring color, again, I still want that to be a light color. Let's say maybe I want this color to be this teal color. But again, I'm going to water that down because I want that to be a thin version of the teal. It's hard to see, but this is what I'm doing. I'm watering this down, putting more water on top of that. So I'm painting that in. So whenever I'm ready to go over these thin portions, I now am able to, later on at least, I'll be able to color those in with the bright blue that I want. But I have to get those base colors in there first. Let me go down here. I just have to skip these little thorns. Take your time with it. Take your time with filling it in. I know it's a lot of space. It's also a lot of maneuvering. So if you ever need to switch to a smaller brush, then feel free to do so. Sometimes it can be tempting to try and squeeze your brush into tiny little areas. But just remember, you can switch brushes. I'm like that too. Sometimes I forget I have access to smaller brushes and don't need to do that. So ideally, I would go in and color all of these areas with my base color and leave those spaces blank that are supposed to be darker. So if I had the rest of this finished, then I could go in here. Let me just do it now, actually. We're just going to pretend that the rest of this is finished. I can now go in here with my smaller areas. I can take my smaller brush and take my darker color and color that in. Again, I'm pointing towards the smaller spaces, painting them in. I happen to go over the line a little bit, but that's okay because it's a little bit more dried, so I'm not too worried about it. And again, these little spaces, those will come later.
Do you wind up fixing those blurry lines? Or you just let it be part of the, because I often have that and I've had to leave it and I just made a decision. That's what I wanted to have happen, but.
Yeah, well, I do end up leaving them. And you can actually see in this area too, I left that part as is. Funny enough, this area here, I did accidentally have it bleed over into this part. So then I thought, you know what, just screw it. I'm just going to spread even more of that purple paint. And so it ended up becoming
A
part
thing.
of this entire thing. Yeah. So it worked out nicely. So if it doesn't quite work out and you do accidentally go outside of the line, that is okay. You can always make it part of the piece. And here's an example right here. I did go outside just a little bit. Actually, this is a great example of what I can do to show you how to fix that. So say you're like me and you go outside just a little bit like that. I'm looking at this area now as a separate piece. This is a separate piece of glass to me now. So what I can do is I can accentuate it. Well, it didn't work out for me to stay within this area, this greenish area. So now I can just go over it. This is now its own separate entity. And voila, there we go. I can even purposefully make it darker on one side. I'm adding a little bit more of the pigment, tapping it in there because it's really wet. And voila, now I have a little bit of depth and gradient to my picture. All because I accidentally went outside that line. So as much as this painting is about staying within the lines, it's also about moving outside the lines and making it different if that's what you wanted to do. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Making it your own.
Or
Making it your own.
adapting, because isn't it our
Yes,
life?
thank
I
you.
mean, it's everyone's life, but our life
Yes.
is even more.
Well, that's the word I was looking for. It's about adapting. If you can't stay inside the lines, it's about adapting and making it something different. So now I can jump to another portion here. While I'm letting this area dry a little bit, because it's very wet, I can go and jump to a different area and I can paint that in. And again, I have to water down my colors, make them pretty light. I'm liking this color choice. I didn't set out to do this in the beginning, but I'm liking this seafoam green color. Wait, it's not seafoam green. What is it? It's more like a chartreuse, I think.
Limey. I always have trouble defining
Limey.
what makes it chartreuse. I think the yellow, right?
Yeah, I think it's the yellow. Yeah. And then, let's see, I have this little piece right here. Now, once you have established or started painting on the background, you can go back into your butterfly at any point. So as long as it's had, a couple minutes to maybe like 5 to 10 minutes to dry on the inside, you can go back in there and pick up the process again. So for me, maybe I'll just paint this section here first, and then I'll go back in. So let's see, what do I have here? Just gonna talk out loud. I think maybe I want like a lighter version of this dark purple. Just a watered down version. If you're like me and you're running out of space to put your colors, then it's totally okay to get a good amount of pigment on your brush. So I'm going straight from the little tin area. I'm sorry, straight from the pigment into the water. Just kind of do a little dip and then go into the space and add more water as needed. Maybe I'll do that and I'll add more water on the next section. Okay, and I'm gonna cross colors. Maybe I'll turn this whole spot into more of a purpley and then jump over. I'm gonna grab a large amount of water, double dipping into my tray with that large amount of water. I want to follow this space. So I want to follow what's going on here. And because I have I did my antennas with a Sharpie marker. I can just go right on top of that with this color. Now, say later on, maybe you change your mind and you want a certain section to actually be a darker version of your color. Like this purple, for example. Maybe later on I decide I want this area to be really, really deep colored. Well, that's okay. You can just wait for it to dry a little bit and wait for the surrounding areas to dry. Then you can go over it with your purple or whatever darker version of your color. Now, let's see. I think I'll go in and I'll color. I'll go back into my butterfly just because I can. And this is, I think, dry enough. I'll do the next largest area, which is going to be these little spots right here. What color should I do that? I don't know what color. Maybe I should do purple. Except if I do purple, I think it's going to remind me of FedEx. So maybe not. My mom works at FedEx, so I can't really get away with it. Or I can't get away from it.
It's purple? I never thought about them as being purple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, FedEx is purple and yellow. I'm sorry,
Well,
purple
you could do
and orange.
brown, UPS.
I could do that. My mom's rival.
Mm-hmm.
Could do that. I think I'll try blue and this turquoise color here. So I want to blend these two colors, doing one section at a time. I put, that color's pretty deep, but I want to blend two colors together. I want to put this color down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this color. This is the new color. I'm going to go to the opposite end. I'm going to have it meet right about there. And then I'm going to kind of drag the blue upwards. There you have it. I know it's wet, so it's kind of hard to see with the glare there, but those are two different colors blended. So the trick is just to work one section at a time. I forgot which blues I used. Oh, that's right. Once again, start off with this blue towards the middle, drag it up, and then erase it, take it away from my brush. That's what I meant to say, take it away from my brush. Then go back into color number 2. Start on the opposite end. Right about there, drag it inward, and then slowly start to drag the blue into the opposite space. And tap it to take some of that paint off. And there we have it. I like that. I really like those two colors together. Do y'all have any questions? Anyone do anything creative this week? I'm dying to ask that all night. Anybody?
Yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
did like a oil pastel tutorial. Let me see if I could get it.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
blended everything together.
Yeah, and well, the dog was supposed to be like a little girl, but I couldn't get her
Oh.
head and all that right, so it became a dog. So
Adorable, I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so, yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Can I ask you what your technique was, or is that a secret?
Oh no, I don't know what the technique was. Like, what do you mean?
Like how did you blend it?
Well, after I did the background, I just got like what are those cosmetic sponges or whatever? This triangle cosmetic sponges. And and then I just kind of went circular around.
Okay.
Yeah.
You did so well with the blending. That's why I had to ask, because I was like, what's your secret?
Yeah, well, just a cosmetic sponge, and then
Yeah.
then I went in a circle from lighter to darker, and then I kind of reversed it, I guess. So
Yeah.
And you
makes
said
sense.
tutorial, was that like a YouTube thing? Or?
yeah, it was on YouTube. I found it on YouTube. I just Googled like in YouTube I just put oil pastel for beginners or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he didn't say, the tutorial didn't say like what he drawed with. So I got those, what are they called? Like those wax or China markers are called, or the wax.
Oh, yeah, those.
That's the only thing I could find to like draw on those. I don't know what draws on oil pastel.
Oh, so you made the figures out of not oil pastels.
No, the tree and the swing and the figures and the grass and all that, it's those what are they called? China markers?
China markers, yeah.
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 Wow. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, I was trying to think, because I was trying to find him too. Yeah, I was trying to find something to draw on with. That's what I was going to ask you, if you know what you draw on with oil pastels. Like, what do you use?
No, I had no
figured
idea.
it out.
Yeah.
So that's what I used. So
yeah, that's really cool. I have to incorporate that into a class sometime.
Yeah. So
awesome.
No. Yeah, you did really well. It's so pretty.
Thank you. Yeah.
So he drew the things but didn't tell you what to use. How weird.
No, he said he did a colored list of what oil pastels. I did close. I didn't have exactly. Yeah. And then, you know, how you like, because this, you just kind of you use masking tape to make a circle. So you don't draw over it for the moon.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then when he got the marker or whatever he was using, it didn't say, and I even read the comments. I like, well, some of the comments, there's a lot of comments, but I didn't see what he drew with. So I just made different things, and the wax China markers are the only thing that I was able to do. So
was it a live class?
No, it's just a tutorial on YouTube. It was about 10 minutes long. Like, he went quick, so I just had to keep pausing it. So yeah, that's because he did like real quick. Yeah. So
when they do
Susie, I think the gel pens that he used at the end.
I'm sorry.
I think the
gel pens
to go over his pastels.
Yeah.
My volume's acting up.
Yeah,
gel
you're
pens.
Out.
Gel pens as in like jelly roll pens, or is there a different brand?
For what?
I mean,
because I know Tony, you'd mentioned
brush.
Oh, are you asking what kind of pens?
Other, let me see.
Oh, what are you holding up, Tony? Let me add you as a spotlight.
Yeah, what is that?
Oh, is that like a
Color?
watercolor pen?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you use on.
Are you sure it wouldn't water? Like it wouldn't not water, like only run on top?
I mean, it wouldn't bleed.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm your interpreter.
Tony, you're welcome to write it in the chat too so we can see it. Yeah, if you can. But that's really awesome, Susie.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great way to solve that issue though, like with the China markers.
Yeah, I use
yeah.
a couple different things, and that's the only thing I could get to work. So
Yeah.
so up close, the shadow, the grass looks kind of rough up close because that's where I started. But yeah, so
Still though, like the tree looks amazing too.
thank you. Yeah, and I couldn't get the little girl right. So yeah, I turned her into a dog. So
Ingenious, yeah.
Yeah.
Tony says that it's a coloring brush pen, but she has no idea what he uses. Okay, so you've seen the same one. Tony says that she asked in the comments on one of the videos. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Coloring brush.
Yeah, gotta look into those too.
More places to spend money.
Cool.
I know.
But good thing. I mean,
It's the best thing to do in an art class.
That's why I'm happy with my limitations.
Yeah.
I mean, I never figured out about layering. I really set apart to learn more about how this program works. And
Yeah.
every time I do, I hit the same brick wall. It's kind of like,
with the program or yourself?
with getting the information, not so much the program. I mean, the program I hit a wall, but then I get to a point of going, well, I'd like to know what layering is. And then I'm doing a workaround. Like I'm being very creative today because this is totally, I decided to take a PNG, like a picture. Okay, I'll download it as a picture so that I have the lines, but then it took away part of the picture. So I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm blowing up parts of the picture. I'm just going, Karen, it's okay. I'm glad to be here because I wasn't well, I don't want to go to art class today. I don't want to do anything. And I had to run out to the store. I was like, because I'm out of fruits and vegetables. And I went, well, what happened if I would hate myself. And I go, well, that's not acceptable. Okay. Because I give myself a lot of permission to be lazy. So now I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I did that PNG and then it came out small, but I could blow up my pictures. And I'm just experimenting with things. And I'm already not unhappy. And I've hardly done anything. So
That's a good place to be though.
To go, to just go, okay, I'm just gonna try my little artistic self.
I like your phrasing though. You said you're already not unhappy. That's a place to start.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, I mean, I've only put 2 colors on the whole. I haven't really done it, but I also don't have to do what you do because I don't have to worry about bleeding. And I'm like, I'm way behind, but I'm still trying to incorporate, I'm more excited to go, well, what's going to happen?
I always just like seeing what you do with it because you have to think differently. You have to think outside the box because you're not using physical products.
And if I was in the box, it wouldn't work because I'm not, I have nothing to fall back on about being in the box.
Yeah.
It's in a way I am in the box, I have the screen, I'm limited. But I try to find out about layering. But the point is with that is it's kind of like if you wanted to explain to somebody from another planet, like what a landline telephone is,
Oh yeah.
because people go phone. Well, what's a phone?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're not talking on your phone. Your iPhone is not a phone. It's a little computer. I'm talking like a phone. And oh, you mean like a flip phone? No. So it's kind of when I approach this layering, there's some presumption that I know what layering is.
That's a really good point.
There's some presumption that, who at age 71 would take up an art practice and not know what to expect from an art program. I don't know. I mean, the program within the computer. So
yeah, well, honestly, when you put it that way, I immediately think of my own grandpa. Like he doesn't really even know. He's 89 and he doesn't even know what internet is. Like he just knows that he gets to watch TV, and in his head he still thinks it's cable, but like you can't really explain what the internet is to him because he really just does not understand it. He has no concept.
And he doesn't want to.
Yeah, really he doesn't want to, and that's fine. It's totally okay that he doesn't want to. But I remember there was a certain moment when I was, visiting him, and I don't remember exactly what I wanted to show him, but it involved getting on the internet. I think maybe it's possible that I wanted to teach him how to actually browse the internet, but that would have involved like I guess teaching him how to navigate websites safely. Because how they always like there's ads that pop up and things like that. And I remember having to teach my grandma how to navigate websites on her computer, on her computer, on her phone, because she'd go to a web page and at least she knew what Google was, but like she didn't know that you there are some ads you like, some things that you shouldn't click on certain web pages, and it was a mess. It was a mess explaining that to
So
her.
I'm sort of like in the opposite thing, like there's I need to know, what's cable, before I could go. So it's like, well, everybody knows what cable is. So now we're going to show you how you're navigating it. And it's like, well, no, I need to understand what cable is before I could get to a more advanced place. So that's what I'm encountering. And I'm okay with that. That's the thing. It's like, okay, well, that's okay.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you're still, learning about it.
Well, even if I learn, I don't remember. I look at some of these paintings and I go, well, what did I don't know what tool I won't remember by the next week.
Yeah. Kind of like I have a hard time remembering like things to do during the day.
Well, there's the Google Calendar, and then I have a note program called Color Note because I looked around for a good note-taking program, and I really don't need it to do everything. So it's called Color Note, and it's just very simple. It just says it does what you want it to do. Like there's different colors, and it just takes notes or lists. That's it.
Oh, that's nice.
Right? And you can email what you have to yourself. And then I, in my mind, have certain categories of colors. So then you can look, and it's like, that's all I need to do. So I can't remember anything anymore. What am I going to do today? I had put fruits and veg, don't go to the market.
I feel like I might have to look that up. I remember things when I color code them or when I have an easier way to color code them.
Yeah, I have that in my Google Calendar. I have a lot of colors for
Mhm.
things. Like they only give you a certain amount of colors, but then you could create new categories.
Mm.
And the categories could be a little more unique color. And I showed that to someone once and they go, God, isn't it, don't you get dizzy looking at it? It's like, no, I like
No.
that.
I don't think I would either. Yeah, no, I get the feeling I would actually really enjoy that. All right, just so y'all know, I'm just going through and I'm painting the smaller portions of my background. I can actually go in here and start on my rows, and you guys can do so as well. You can really do that at any time. Mostly you'll want the majority of your background immediately around your rows. You want that to be dry. So probably I'll give this another minute or so. So maybe I'll just jump into this one and work on this one. While this area dries, you can see it's a little wet. So I'll let that do its thing. And then I'll start on the rows. In the original picture, I actually went in and I used two tones. So I used this kind of darker red for the outside, and then I used this lighter red that I have on the opposite end for the inside here. It's kind of like a fire truck red mixed in with like a rose red on this side. So, and I'll show you how I painted in this way, but it's very subtle. You really don't have to do it this way at all. Um, I just want to show you what you see here, just in case you like how this looks. But again, you do not have to do it this way. And in fact, you can create your own color. So it does not even have to be a rose. I know some people probably have different color flowers, and that's totally fine. So let's see. Maybe I'll probably give this another minute or so I can just kind of paint this side over here. I think I'll use, I'm just talking out loud at this point. I think I'll use a little bit of purple. Because why not? I don't know if you guys do this, but sometimes I feel like I have to match my breathing with my brush strokes. Because I feel like my breathing messes up the flow of my brush strokes. And so I'll like sometimes I'll hold my breath when I'm doing a certain brush stroke, or maybe I'll just slow down my breathing a little bit, and that allows me to concentrate a little bit more on what I'm doing.
That makes sense because I notice I hold my breath for some of these
Yeah,
things.
yeah. So you can
And
kind of.
I have an undo pen, so I don't even have to hold my breath. But I try not to use it as a crutch, you know.
Yeah, but it's nice that you have it. Sometimes I find myself wanting to say the word delete when I really mean erase.
Oh,
Yeah. Or like I'll want to delete something, but really I'll want to erase it. There
well,
we
I have
go.
to dictate my I can do a little bit, I pretty much dictate my missives. And I have one tablet where it's not doing it now. I don't know why they changed the program, but I can go, all right, I went to the store, period. And then I did that. So I was dictating something, and then I had my social worker called and I said something to her, I went to the art class, period. So she wanted to know, like, what do you mean by that?
Period.
and I'm never going again.
Yeah. Almost as if it was an exclamation point instead.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
So yeah, this MS does funny things to you.
Period.
Period.
Now I'm
Delete.
going to
Delete. I didn't mean that. Delete.
gonna paint my little rose now. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you the technique that I mentioned, where I took the one type of red, and I actually do it, I don't know, different ways, but I'm gonna go ahead and start in the middle here, just because I like to do things by order of operations sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So I'm leaving a little space right there within the petal so I can add my other kind of red. So that fire truck red that I mentioned over here. I think I grabbed a little too much water. There you go. And then start on the opposite end. Add that in. I think I'll go ahead and just color that in completely, because why not?
So sorry, did you say you did both colors already?
I did.
In there?
Yeah. Now, because this is such a tiny area, they just mixed together. And I probably had a little bit too much water on my brush, so it was just really easy for it to mix.
Yeah.
So because this in the middle is very, very wet, I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm going to jump towards the outside. So a layer away from that middle area, because it's very wet and I don't want it to mix in. So now I have that rose color. I'm going to jump into my fire truck color and add it on the opposite end. And then go over my rose color so that they both mix. And there you have it. That's how you blend the two colors. Do that one petal at a time. So I can jump over to the next one. And once again, I'll start off with that first rose color red. Go on the outside of this petal towards the outer edge. And then erase this color, get rid of this color on my brush, go to the other red number 2, fire truck red. Put that starting on the opposite end. Color it all in before I start to overlap. And then repeat the process. I'm really liking that big petal right there. It's my favorite one so far. Would anyone, it's 8:04. Would anyone like to show us their work? Just in case you need to leave right on time. Yeah, see you, Tony. I'm gonna add you on the spotlight so you can show your work. Oh, that's awesome. Look at all the squares.
Oh, it's like a brick kind of thing. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool, Tony. I love what you did with the background, with the blending of the blue and the purple together. That looks really nice. Thank you, Tony.
Very
Love
nice.
it. Love it. Who else would like to share, if anybody else?
I can.
Yeah. Let me see. Was that Sharon that spoke? Because I see you holding your, oh, Anna Marie. So Anna Marie, I'm gonna put you up first, and then Sharon, you'll be next.
Okay.
Okay, Anna Marie, you're up. That's so pretty. Look
Thanks.
at that. Oh, and your roses are gorgeous
Very
too.
nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did so well, especially with the color choices and with the patterns and sectioning everything off. That's beautiful.
Thanks. This was fun.
Yay! I love this is a good project. This was a lot of fun. Cool, thank you. Now Sharon, you're next. All right, look at you. Those are beautiful colors. Like I'm really loving the little butterfly and the way it looks with the green background underneath it. Like all of those colors, they just go so well together. Awesome, Sharon. Thank you.
Nice job.
I love it. These are so awesome.
We're like your little babies,
I know.
right? You know, you have this concept, and then we're like, okay, we can
I
do
love it. I love it. You guys did amazingly. I can't wait to see more. Okay, so I'm going to continue my little rose here. Feel free to give me a shout out if you need to get going and want to show your work. Or even if you don't, you know, if you need to go, it's okay.
I have a question about this mosaic thing that we're doing in the background.
Mhm.
When we did that project before, we blended colors, but with this, it seems like you're going more for an opaque kind of color.
Mhm.
Is it? Is that-
So honestly, the only reason I blended colors in the first place is because I didn't like the way they looked initially,
For
with no
this, or you mean
blending.
when we did that mosaic, that wasn't, you know, it wasn't this project, it was just another project about doing those lines
Oh,
and mosaics.
oh yeah, that's right. It was when we didn't use the watercolors, right? It was just markers, I think.
Well, I don't know what we used.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I do feel like, yeah, with that one, it was different because just because of the medium. For me, when I was initially coming up with that project and creating that project, it was really easy for me to take my markers and just slide it up past its line and blend it that way. So it was a little bit more involved with the hand motions, and that's why I wanted to blend even more with that one.
Oh, and then
With
that was
this,
also, and then that was the focus. We're here, it's like the
Mhm.
butterfly and the rose is the focus, right?
Exactly, exactly. The butterfly is the focus. You can certainly blend some colors, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to mention this portion right here. This right here. I had started off with my purple, and so I colored this in purple. But then I decided I was just going to go over it with the same yellow that's right here. So I overlapped these two spots right here. And I love the way it turned out. So it
Yeah.
was really easy to just overlap those two colors. And I might actually do that with maybe just this part, maybe a portion of this right up, further up on the picture. You can do that. So if you like the way these colors look when they're overlapped, you can certainly go over it again with that same color, and well, do that once it's dry. Do that when it's dry. Then you can just sort of go over that color, and it will I guess cover it more cleanly and more evenly as long as it's dry. There's actually a name for that technique where you say I were to color this. I already have everything colored and I want to go over it with another, like a thin layer of color. That's called glazing. So you glaze on top of it and it changes the look of the painting or the look of the whatever you're coloring over.
Hannah,
Uh-huh.
I have to go, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask, is there class next Monday?
Next Monday, yes, there is. Yes.
Okay, all right, great.
Yeah.
Thank
Do
you.
y'all want to? You're welcome. Do y'all want to see what we're doing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let me show you. I originally wasn't going to do this project just because I wasn't sure about it, but I actually do think it'll be fun. So here it is. So I'll teach you guys how to draw tropical leaves. And that's done in crayons.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
So crayons, we'll draw everything in crayons. But of course, if you want to use oil pastels, actually, you can use oil pastels too. That would look really nice too. And then just for the background, just a very simple wash of watercolor, just to give it more, just to give it a nice layer. And that's it.
Great.
So I'm excited.
Well, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. See you next week. So anytime you're finished with coloring your rose, well, honestly, you don't even have to be finished with it. Really, at any point, you can do the stem of your rose or your flower. I originally just wanted to do something really simple, so I say that, and here I am mixing colors on the side. I always say that.
But you said you wanted to, and then you changed
Wanted
your
past
mind.
tense. Exactly, past tense here. So I mix like a more neutral green, like it's not as bright. And I'm just gonna color on top of it. Nothing special, but it looks pretty nice that way. So I wanted to point out something more along the lines of what we were talking about with blending of colors and glazing, that technique. Well, in the original picture, this was actually much brighter. Like this orange right here was very, very bright. This yellow right here was more of a bright lemony yellow, and I really didn't like it as much. So what I did was, this was maybe 2 days later, 3 days later, I went over it with a thin amount of color on top of what was already there. So I know I mentioned earlier that originally this entire area was painted this lemony yellow. Well, I decided to add this one of my reds on top of it. But I think I even went further than that. Now that I think about it, I think I even added a purple on top of that too. So that really toned it down. And I just put it right on top of it. I allowed the watercolor, or I'm sorry, I allowed the water to wash right over it, just a thin layer. Same thing with this side. I think I ended up adding like a brown, probably a lighter brown. I don't even remember what I did exactly, but just the brown on this side and down here. And then I blended it in with my orange so that it remained orange at the top here, but that water really helped me to blend it in. So if you want to do something like that, I'll show you how to do that. I'll probably just do it on this side, just so you guys can see what it looks like. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do this. I had decided to do this because I really didn't like it. I thought it was too bright. But I wanted to tone it down. So say maybe I want to tone down this color. So I'll pick a neutral color or maybe the opposite color. And I can add a little brown. Maybe a little brown to my green. Maybe that's what it needs. Brown and green mixed together. And it's pretty light. There's a lot of water mixed in with this, so it's not going to be a very strong color. I could even take that further and add a little bit of orange to it. That orange is going to make it a little bit brighter, but it's still going to be a brown. There we go. Very thin. So I'll pick a side. So maybe I'll start on this side. I'll start here. Start dragging it along the edge. And then going over it again and again and again. And that's going to allow me to blend it. I do want to get a little more. Dragging it down. Going over it. I'm spreading it upwards. My brush strokes are much more vertical. They're longer brush strokes. I'm getting some more. I want to put some down here. It's a very subtle change, but it's making a big difference. Now, because I want to keep this end, I want it to be more the pure color that I had used originally. I'm not going to go over that area with the brush. Just go over that part again and again. And if needed, you could always use a little bit of water, just a little bit, not a lot. Go right on top of that edge, and it should be able to blend it. Go on top of the edge, again and again and again, and it should blend it. And there you have it.